TDS is a game that's known for strategy, unlike another game, and well, within those strategies lay towers and game modes. Hardcore towers are some of the best towers in the game right now, handling most of the meta towers like the Accelerator or the Engineer, and game modes are something we play in, like, you know, Polluted Wasteland, Pizza Party, Intermediate, Fallen, you get the idea. Now, how this video will work is that I will not use like 2 hardcore towers in one party, since that will defeat the purpose of this video, and instead we'll use like varied towers within it, like maybe Accelerator will have Golden Cowboy and no farm, whilst the Brawler has farm and no Golden Cowboy. You get the idea. And now, disclaimer, this video is also not targeted towards like people that are poor, since I'll be using a lot of the current best towers in the game right now, especially since I'm going to be soloing some of these game modes like the Fallen mode and the Intermediate mode. Plus, I'll remove in event towers, as using them is kind of unfair to the people that couldn't participate in them, and also I'll be skipping Molten mode, since, you know, this is before the rework, so literally anyone can beat it with a single brain cell, and the beginner mode, because I don't really care about those. Additionally, this video will be separated into 3 parts. This first part will cover Accelerator and Engineer, whilst the second part will cover the Brawler and the Necromancer, and the last part will cover all the hardcore towers against hardcore. So first, let's talk about each individual game mode first, before I talk about how to use the towers effectively. Feel free to skip here if you don't want me to yap about the game modes. So first, Intermediate mode. Intermediate mode is a game mode that's ridiculously fast paced. It spawns a lot of zombies, gives a lot of money, and expects you to handle it at a quick pace. Intermediate mode can prove to be a very hard mode if you don't have the proper towers to use, especially with zombies like the Reavers or Ghouls coming in extremely early. Secondly, Fallen. In the time that I'm writing this script, Fallen had been recently reworked, meaning that I had a lot of video footage of Fallen mode due to me just trying to figure out how the wave structure works. Only from using the Accelerator though. For Engineer, I get the gist of it. And in general, it's very hard, very consistently. Well, except for some waves which are basically free. And in combination with flying enemies and hiddens, it's a game mode that needs your full attention through and through. Thirdly, Pizza Party. Pizza Party and the rest of the special game modes were the ones that I couldn't triumph by myself. And yes, I tried, but it didn't work out so well. Pizza Party is essentially just the unreworked Fallen mode, but much easier. However, due to the horrible map size, I just couldn't triumph it as smoothly as Fallen mode. Of course, the flying enemies also made it annoying to counter, and the extra defense percentage is also annoying to deal with. And with the buffs that the zombies gain over time, it's why I couldn't triumph it in the first place. But you know, when I queued with people, most of the matches, I triumphed. So there you go. Next, Badlands 2. Badlands 2 is a game mode that is hard even with players. It spawns triple the zombies and even gives buffs to the zombies, with their HP increasing in every wave. Moving on, Polluted Wasteland. Polluted Wasteland is a game mode that's currently the hardest behind hardcore. It contains extremely fast and tanky zombies combined with many dip spikes and random circuits and toxics. It's extremely difficult to beat unless your team has 3 players with Accelerator in their party. And you know, finally, hardcore. I won't be talking about hardcore in this part, but I figure it's worth mentioning because I'm talking about each game mode. Hardcore is currently the hardest game mode right now, increasing all the towers price times 1.5, sending out beefy enemies within the first 10 waves, having a new type of zombie called leads. It's just incredibly hard and not fun to play, unless if you know what you're doing. Because I'm guessing for the most of y'all, you're just gonna queue with your friends, which it's hard. Now that we got the overview for each game mode, let's talk about the Accelerator first and how to properly utilize him in each and every one of them. So the Accelerator is a tower that's supposed to do a lot of damage in a short period of time. Why I say short period of time instead of consistently, you might ask, is because of this stupid thing called overcharge. If the Accelerator deals more damage than this counter right here, it'll stop dealing damage and just recharges its beam. Now we also must consider its price. He's a very expensive tower and can sometimes be the reason why you lost due to some quick zombies passing by. Alright, I think that's all I need to brief about, because like most of the cons depend on the game mode, so you know, let's talk about it first. Okay, Intermediate. Now, since Intermediate mode is very fast paced, we'll need a tower that can do consistent DPS whilst being able to let us get cash quickly. Since Accelerator is a mid game to late game tower, we just ignore him for now. So in my opinion, the Cowboy is the best pick, especially Golden, since it does those roles extremely well. Milton is also great, but you'd have to skip the first wave, wasting time and wave clear bonus. Ace Pilot is also great to use as the DPS is good for the price and can deal a ton of damage in the later waves, but I'm not doing that. Now, since we got the early towers, after that you can just use whatever, to be honest. Since intermediate mode is mainly focused on cheap sustainable towers that deals consistent damage, Accelerator isn't that high on the priority list. You can continue leveling up your supports and early game towers to easily reach the final wave, but accelerators are always nice to have. There are some counters to the accelerator though, like in my opinion, reavers are the main counter to accelerator, as one hit from your towers transmit 1 HP lost. Now this isn't all that bad since overcharge won't be affected until reavers with over 100 HP starts to come. Some accelerators might lose range of it as it's quite quick and would usually spawn in like groups too. Other than that, the rest of the waves should be a piece of cake once you fix that problem.
How we can fully utilize Accelerator here is that we can, as I said, upgrade your supports first so it can deal with the Reaver spam, and maybe set your Accelerator to be set to strongest so it doesn't target those Reavers by accident, since it can lead to DPS loss. In addition, wave 14 upwards is recommended, in my opinion, for accelerators to be placed, as the Necromancer first spawns here, and there's simply a lot of zombies that spawn in this wave. So yeah, next, Fallen. Whoa.
Fallen mode is basically intermediate mode, but twice the difficulty. The reworked Fallen mode has tanky zombies with supporting zombies and flying zombies. Now, this game mode is hard. Somehow I can somewhat triumph it smoothly now, but I know that I can only triumph it in easy maps. If we use harder or insane maps, bro, I'm cooked. For early towers, we can just use the same as in the intermediate mode, but now we need the ranged towers. Coincidentally, Ranger happens to be one of the best pick for that matter. You can use Ranger's infinite range to clear out most of the leakage and deal with most bosses. Plus, flying enemies won't be a worry no more. Now, the part where Fallen mode gets hard is in wave 14, where Fallen starts spawning. They each have 20% defense and sprints extremely quickly. And in combination to that, in wave 16, they summon even more Fallens. And in wave 18, Fallen Jester starts to spawn, making those Fallens a lot more quicker, since Fallen Jester speeds up any zombie that had gotten hit from the splash bombs. Also, be sure to bring Commander and keep Koa chaining, since that's what made Fallen mode a I hate this game mode to this is slightly bearable now, so do that.
How we can fully utilize Accelerator in Fallen is that we can, of course, place him in the middle of the map, but you should only really place one Accelerator and level him up to level 2 or 3 first. Of course, I am referring to like easy maps, since he is simply a burden and costs way too much for what he's worth in the early waves. Ranges can help clear most of the Fallen waves, whilst maybe your early game towers with support buffs can deal with the other zombies, and Rangers can also just deal consistent damage. Accelerator is good for dealing with the Necromancer spam, and after wave 18, that's when the Accelerator becomes ridiculously useful. Accelerator likes to deal with slow tanky zombies, and most of them usually spawn in the waves upwards from wave 18. This is my opinion though, so take it with a grain of salt.
Now, within these 3 special game modes, I will not be soloing as I am too small brain to figure that out. Okay, Pizza Party. Why I said that message first is that I was trying to solo Triumph Pizza Party for like 2 hours, or specifically almost 2 days, and then I just gave up. The reason for this is because of these ridiculously tanky shotgunners. Accelerators here are greatly needed. Its DPS is amazing, especially due to those stupid shotgunners. Mortars are also one of the main reasons why I was able to pass wave 31 solo, thank you Topaz, as the splash damage it provided not only to the shotgunners but breakers too makes it such a useful tower to have. And so for like the tower placements for Accelerator, in my opinion, it should be placed around here, as the DJ is normally placed here. The Accelerator's range can reach around here until here. All the other waves are easy until it turns wave 30, so just like queue up with random people, since if you're only using the Accelerator, more often than not, that's enough to triumph Pizza Party, if your team has a player that can defend early.
And in my opinion, to fully utilize the Accelerator, you should just place him a wave before the monkeys arrive. Level 3 or 4 at most is enough to handle the waves below wave 30, and anything after wave 30, just max your Accelerator if you want, but you know, be sure to remember about the flying enemies. Alright, cool. Badlands 2, let's go.
Badlands basically requires accelerators and turrets. It's doable without those, of course, but it would make the game mode a lot less stressful, as usually someone would be early defending with a cowboy whilst you farm, and then in like wave 10, you'd place your accelerators around this area or this area. This is usually due to DJs being placed here and commanders being placed here. Now, why is accelerator so needed in this game mode? First and foremost, there's 3 lanes. They each spawn the same zombies as the old Fallen, but like harder. There's this buff to the zombies where when each round passes, they also gain more shield, giving you even less money and more tankier enemies in general. Secondly, the lanes are separated, meaning you'd need big range and big damage within short periods of time, due to how compact the map is. You'd want to cover at least half the map with the accelerator's range to have the best chance of triumphing. And finally, the gunslinger has a lot. Yeah, that much. Accelerator is used to primarily deal with these kinds of maps, and holy hell, does he do it well. He basically shreds through most bosses in this game mode, and in combination with Call of Arms and DJ buff, he should be one of the towers that carries the match. Alright, let's talk about Polluted Wasteland now. Now, in Polluted Wastelands, there is two types of Accelerator users. One who farms until level 3 farms, then beg the DJ to be maxed before they max their accelerators to deal with Wave 22, or two who early defense, farms for the rest of the match, occasionally placing supports here and there, and placing every tower until max placement before Accelerator. If you can tell, I'm number 2 since I don't trust my random teammates in bringing early game towers, as they almost always never bring early game towers. I mean, either roles are nice because both roles benefit each other either way, so it's not like one is better than the other. Oh wait, oops, I have gone off track. So accelerators here I usually place here and here. Since we can count on our teammates, they usually place the DJ here and commanders here. Now this will affect basically every single tower, so your accelerators should do a crud ton of damage.
Accelerator in this game mode is quite literally required, as the last boss has 1.5 million HP, including the many other zombies that can spawn. In addition, the map is huge. With circling pathways, the Accelerator can completely take advantage of this with his quite big range and DPS to, you know, completely destroy the zombies. To fully utilize him, in my opinion, you should place him at like wave 16 or 17, maybe when the Necromancer comes in, and hope to god that your teammate has already placed and upgraded the DJ a little, and if they do, Accelerator level 4 or 5 is recommended, due to the amalgamation coming up in wave 21. After that, you can keep placing level 4 accelerators or farm until max and then focus on defending with accelerators, although this really depends on what type of player you are, as I mentioned earlier.
I think that's all I need to yap about the Accelerator because I still have another tower to yap about. Alright, engineer time. Yay, engineer. I think I'll give a recap on how the engineer works first before we talk about how to utilize her fully. Alright, so the engineer is the tower that mainly relies on her consistent DPS with her sentries and herself. She got the basic sentry, the rifle sentry, minigunner sentry, and war machine sentry, and also she is mainly used in early, mid, or late game, depending on how you're planning on using her. Her DPS is, as I said, very consistent, allowing most bosses to be completely shredded when you use her. She also has this bar on the top where once she deals this amount of damage, she can summon another sentry. Now, it kind of takes time to build one sentry, which is why I thought it was worth noting. Also, the sentry ranges are like huge. I mean, even the basic one is great. The fire rate is like 3/4 of a militon, and it does a good amount of chip damage. The sentries also have these shields where they can't be stunned. For example, like if the Fallen King stomps on the ground once, the shield would be broken, but what I'm assuming, if the nuclear monster, the final boss in Polluted Wasteland, stomps 3 times, I think they'd have to wait from being stunned. Either that or it's the same. I actually don't know. Finally, she also has a placement limit of 6, and yeah, I think that's good enough for a recap. Alright, let's talk about intermediate now. Now for intermediate mode, it's relatively the same with the Accelerator. Engineer isn't needed in intermediate mode, but only used to speed up the triumph process. The Reavers aren't that big of a deal now, as engineers can easily deal with them with the sentries, and her range is big enough so you won't need to constantly move her across the map.
She can be your early game tower as she's affordable and can deal with the ghouls pretty easily. Just be sure to place a few more towers and not only her. And in my opinion, to fully utilize her, just place her when ghouls or reavers come in. If you don't have the golden cowboy, I recommend using her for early game as she's really good for it. And also, intermediate mode is not hard to beat. Just place engineers here and there and you can probably beat it. So yeah, Fallen mode.
For Fallen mode, again, relatively similar with the Accelerator. Most of the zombies that had been a problem with the Accelerator is mostly fixed with the Engineer, and she can deal consistent damage, allowing fast enemies to be easily defeated. There isn't much to say about the Engineer. I guess you can level her up to like level 3 in wave 16 or 18 and she can deal big damage, but just like keep co-chaining and keep placing rangers, since in Fallen mode, rangers are like the MVPs in the game mode. Engineers can be good for early game here too, but I'd still use the cowboy since it's like a no-brainer.
And so in my opinion, to fully utilize her, yeah, wave 16 or 18 is good for engineer, but also placing her 1 or 2 waves before the Fallen spawn is also pretty good. I'm guessing most of you who has the engineer is going to queue with people, so engineer can help poke a bit of damage towards the Fallens, whilst the rest of your teammates can finish it off. Engineer is quite a balanced tower through and through, so as the wave progresses, you should also upgrade your engineers one by one. Of course, put her in the middle of the map with your supports so she can reach the most amount of zombies too. But you can also just completely ignore my opinion and just use her as an early game tower again. She's really flexible, so yeah.
Flying enemies is also detected with the engineer, so it shouldn't be that big of a problem in combination with the rangers you should have placed. Okay, let's talk about Pizza Party now. For Pizza Party, engineer is like cool. Good for you. You can use her as a DPS for mid game to deal with the shotgunners or to deal with the balloons. Since, you know, she can detect flying enemies, she isn't really used for early game because there are like better alternatives for early waves. So mostly people with engineer likes to farm and then max her out in like 4 waves.
You can place her here or here since she utilizes her range to fullest. Plus, you can put like a level 2 engineer when the scout appears and then continue farming if you're that desperate for some DPS. I think you can solo this game mode with engineer. It's just that I'm too lazy since this video had already taken a very long time to make. Alright, Badlands time.
Now, same with Accelerator, her role in this game mode is very useful. Big range, big damage, 3 lanes. The War Machine sentries can deal AoE damage, and the other sentries can deal with the leaks. Engineer herself can deal with the bosses as well, and combined with Koa chaining, she is a monster in terms of DPS. And unlike the Accelerator, she has consistent DPS, so all these fast enemies won't be leaked that easily as well. And in combination with your team's towers, it should relatively be an easy triumph, except if, you know, your team is purposely throwing. I normally place her around here or here, but if it's here, you'd hope to God you have a person with a DJ, since like she's very expensive. The sentry shields could also be popped like very easily, but it should be fine since rangers can deal the extra big damage. Alright, last one, Polluted Wasteland. Polluted Wasteland needs engineer. Well, not need per se, but recommended to have with the engineer. Of course, this is mainly due to how tanky the zombies are in combination with how much HP the final boss has, but also her consistent damage disables fast enemies, again, to pass through. Toxics could still be a problem with the circuits and rushers, but if you place your engineers in a good spot, they should be relatively shredded by the sentries and the accelerators. Breakers shouldn't be that much of a problem because of War Machine's AoE damage, and the incredibly long path combined with the engineer covering basically the entire map makes it an amazing pick. Forgot to mention, since the sentries have shields as well, they can almost always be used even when the dudes like do the stuns. Very nice.
And in addition, to fully utilize her, in my opinion, you should place her around here or here. It's quite similar to the Accelerator again, since you'd want the most amount of map covered by those towers range. However, accelerators are usually placed in this part, so engineers should be placed here. It's like the mutual agreement of every TDS player. I don't know. She works especially well during the early game too, since the sentries and the circling pathways allows the engineer to actually deal a ton of damage. I mean, this recording right here shows it, as I stayed almost completely AFK upgrading my farms, whilst another guy was defending in the early waves, all with an engineer. Actual madness how good this tower is. Engineers dealing with the amalgamation is mostly just extra poke damage, whilst the accelerator usually are supposed to finish the job. And also, engineer can counter stuns, so those annoying wardens and stomps from the big toxic man himself shouldn't be too big of a problem. But you know, the sentries still can get stunned, but not broken, so it's good.
Alright, that should be all the game modes concerning the engineer and the accelerator. Gotta do brawler and necromancer next? Yay. There isn't really much of a debate here that these two towers are basically the towers that stand atop the meta towers, and is used by pretty much everyone. It can fulfill its roles perfectly and effectively and can be used in almost every scenario in general. Intermediate mode could be an exception due to it being focused on people with lower tier towers, but disregarding that, these two towers are a must-have for almost every game mode in TDS. I don't know what else I want to yap about, so I'll just end it here. Thank you for watching, and fight the like button and comment first to tell us you are first. I don't know, and I'll see you all in next month because I'm lazy. Okay, bye.